Good afternoon to everyone. Am I audible to you? Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Uh, Okay, today we will start block 5 of MEG-6, which is American poetry, part 1. Okay, American poetry. America has a rich poetic tradition. American literature has produced uh, wonderful poets of the literary arena. We have T.S. Eliot, the milestone of English poetry. If you read T.S. Eliot, you can understand. He is the most powerful, you can say, modern poet. W.B. Yeats, T.S. Eliot, these are very important. T.S. Eliot, particularly, who belongs to America, American literature, is also a product of American poetry. So today we will pay attention to American poetry. Okay. So in block 5, we have been introduced to two poets, two poets, two most renowned, the greatest poets, you can say, two great poets. One is What Whitman, and the second one is Emily Dickinson. Both of them, they are very important poets if you take into account of American literary tradition, American literature. We find these two poets, Wat Whitman and Emily Dickinson, to be very important. So there are many other poets also. We discussed about the novelists, two novelists, Mark Twain, Nathaniel Hawthorne. We discussed about them. We read them. So now we will look at what Whitman, what kind of poet he was, and Emily Dickinson also at the same time. In the part
Hello,
one.
sir. Sir,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Uh, Sir, we weren't knowing about the classes, so this is my first class with you. So, just wanted to know that the classes are being recorded. So, are they being provided for the students or just for the record? Any,
Uh,
because I missed
yes,
your classes actually.
it may be provided to the students on their demand, but
Okay,
if you contact RC Bhubaneswar, they
okay,
might provide you with the recordings.
okay. I'll ask them. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, if you need recordings of the classes, you have to write to the RC. Okay,
Okay,
whatever
sir.
may be the provision, they will uh, inform you. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So this is block 5, American Poetry 1. We have already completed 4 blocks of MEG-6. This is the 5th block. So we are talking about What Whitman as a poet and Emily Dickinson at the same time as a poet. We will discuss these two poets in American literature and how they started writing, what kind of writings, which tradition they belong to, literary tradition. We'll discuss. Now coming to Whitman. What Whitman is a very important, the most important poet of American literature, you can say. And he was born in 1819 and died in 1892. Okay. He is preoccupied with larger issues of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Okay. In the mid 19th century America. In the mid 19th century America, when the Civil War posed a threat to the unity of the nation. The Civil War, or you can say the American Civil War, took place between 1861 and 65, American Civil War. And the Civil War was between uh, the South, or you can say the Southern America and Northern America. Northern part of America and South America, you can say. They fought for they fought for the abolition of the complete abolition of the slavery system. Okay, and by the uh, end of the Civil War, we find that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Okay, it's a very important phase of American literature. You can say the dark phase of American literature. After getting independence, there was also a civil war which lasted for uh, 5 years, and at last it ended with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the president at that time. Okay, the 18th president of the nation. Northern states won uh, the war. You can say they won the war. They defeated uh, uh, the southern part, the southern states, and Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. This was the civil war, and during that civil war, okay, there was a great threat to the unity of the nation. A newly framed constitution, a newly consolidated nation, you can say. USA, we know that America, after getting independence from British rule, they are just developing. They were just in a process of making their country. So during that phase, we find a black spot in the name of a civil war. Anyhow, Whitman professes liberty, equality, fraternity. The concept that you might have heard derived from Rousseau and other philosophers of Russia during the French Revolution. Okay, sorry, French philosophers. They talk about these three important aspects of a democracy. That there should be liberty, there should be equality, and there should be fraternity. Okay, so these are the concepts that we find mostly taking place in the poems, in the themes of uh, what Whitman as a poet. We will discuss that later on when we discuss his poetry. You will find that these are the things you can find the echo of such concepts, such philosophical themes. Whitman is a poet of American democracy. He preached democracy through his poetry. Okay, okay. His poems are replete with the concept of liberty, equality, and fraternity at the core. He was born in Long Island, Long's Island. His father was a free thinker from England, and his mother was intensely a religious person. So you can also find the footmarks of both the parents, how uh, they have left footprints in the minds of uh, Whitman, okay, as his parents. After some years of formal schooling, he broke out of the school, the classroom, and served as a printer's devil. And mm, he was also a school teacher for some time. Okay, journey. He was also a journey man compositor. He read Shakespeare. He read Bible. He read Walter Scott. He read Homer and many Greek authors and as well Hindu poets. Okay, he read some of the Hindu poets also. Means from our country, from India. He also read a lot of Indian poets, Indian authors. His reading reflected his intellectual curiosity to assimilate the best work both of Europe and Asia. He has mixed of the concept, the cultures, the themes, okay, of both Europe and Asia that we find. Uh, Kindly mute your mic. So that is very important. You will find that there is an assimilation of both the European and Asian cultures, Asian ideology, European and Asian ideology in the text, in the works of Whitman. He was associated with newspaper, magazines, Democrat, okay, of the Democrat was a magazine at that time. He was a journalist there, as he has contributed poems and stories to Democratic Review. This is also a journal, Democratic Review. He has contributed a lot of poems and journals. He published his masterpiece. You must have heard this text. His masterpiece is Leaves of Grass. He published his masterpiece Leaves of Grass in 1855, which contains 12 poems and a critical surface. Okay, he has published 12 poems in an anthology, you can say, and the anthology is named as uh, Leaves of Grass. His masterpiece. Leaves of Grass is written in a free verse, okay, free verse, and devoid of traditional rhymes and meters. You must have ideas about blank verse and free verse. In the earlier text that you may have gone through in your previous year, Shakespearean plays and other poems. Okay, you must have come across the term blank verse. Blank verse is means written in iambic pentameter. Okay, iambic pentameter. Penta means five, in which line line of a poem, if you find 5 feet, 5 feet, 1 feet, 1 foot is there is one syllable is a foot. In rhetorical tragedy you will find this thing. This is the internal part of this is also you will find in syllabus. It's not prescribed for you. When I was in graduation, there was a paper, rhetoric and prosody was a paper in which we were taught these things like meter, feet, then this pentameter, tetrameter, uh, and iambic, pyrrhic. So there are many such iambic or iambus means means unstressed and stressed. Unstressed, stressed. Unstressed, stressed means stressed syllable and unstressed syllables. So when unstressed syllables is followed by a stressed syllable, this is called iambus. And if the fit total fit of a sentence or a line is five, then it is pentameter. So I am, from I am it comes iambic, and as the meter says, this is 5 syllables or 5 feet. Feet are there in this sentence. So this is iambic pentameter. Okay, so blank verse means written in iambic pentameter. For better knowledge, if you want more knowledge regarding this prosody, rhetoric and prosody. So you may find a lot of books on rhetoric and prosody. You can also search on Google. As students of literature, you should have idea about this rhetoric and prosody, which is very important. Okay, so whenever you try to write something, and if you want them to be very literary, you need knowledge of this rhetoric and prosody. Anyhow, this is blank verse, and the opposite is the free verse. Free verse means where there is no rhyming scheme, there will be no rhyming pattern, there will be no metrical parameters. Like there will be no fixed meters. That means here we find in iambic pentameter, we find pentameter means 5 feet in a sentence. So you should not cross that limit. You should not have 6 feet in an iambic pentameter sentence or in a pentameter sentence. Okay, but in free verse you do not you are not confined to any metrical measurement. So you can write one word in a sentence, you can write 10 words in a sentence, irrespective of the stressed on stressed pattern. Okay, that is free verse. There is no limitation, there is no confinement to meters, to feet, and to other rhetorical parameters. There is no binding, there is no limitation. So you can go on experimenting, writing in any manner. So now, when you read modern poems, modern poetry, in Odia also, in any language now, free verse is very much accepted by the authors. We write in free verse. But if you look at the old ancient poems or literary, poetic literary tradition, uh, even when you are very small and you started writing a poem, we are very much stressed how to put the rhyming pattern in our poetry. If there is no rhyming pattern, then this is not a poetry, we thought. So now this is gone. So here we find that leaves of grass is in free verse. Means if you try to find out rhyming scheme, the pattern of rhetoric patterns, means whether it is written in pentameter, tetrameter, hexameter, you do not find such metrical measurement or no unique metrical forms. Okay, and Song of Myself is a very well known poem by what Whitman, is included here in grass of leaves of grass. Okay, O Captain, My Captain on Abraham Lincoln is one of his major poems. Okay, O Captain, My Captain, when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, after his death, Whitman, who loves democracy the most, he wrote mourning over Abraham Lincoln, and this poem was "O Captain, My Captain." When lilacs
So
last,
is it an elegy or something else? Like you said that it's a morning poem.
um, it's a type of elegy, yes. Okay. Another poem is also an elegy. You will find prescribed for you. So here, "O Captain, My
Listed
Captain" is
as.
not prescribed, but when lilacs last on the dooryard bloomed, that is prescribed for you. This is also an elegy uh, over the assassination of Lincoln. Okay. Uh, these are most important poems. Another important poem which has been prescribed to you is also Passage to India. Okay, in 1871 edition, this poem was included in Leaves of Grass. So another thing you must also remember that Leaves of Grass has a lot of editions, and it has been modified. A number of poems have been added, a lot of titles have been changed or modified in every edition. Okay, so we find in 1817 edition of Leaves of Grass, the poem Passage to India was included. Okay, it was perhaps the last major poem by Whitman, in which there is a soaring vision of the entire globe, okay, fusing the spiritual wisdom of the East with the materialism and technology of the West. This is a synthesis kind of theme in which we find that spirituality is uh, combined or fused, you can say. Okay, it's a fusion kind of theme, a fusion of spiritualism with materialism. And we know from Vivekananda and other major religious persons from India that materialism is a byproduct of Western culture, and spiritualism is purely from India, and we are very much proud of it. We are proud of our spiritualism. So I introduced Whitman at the beginning, saying that he studied a lot of Hindu authors also. Um, in those era, you can imagine. So at that time when he read, he must have read Valmiki, Vyasadeva, and other such writers, Kalidas. So who usually wrote about religion. So here another thing also you have to take into account that Whitman is also a pioneer of transcendentalism in America. I gave you um, a brief idea about transcendentalism in the first class, in which I told about transcendentalism, which gives importance to the inner self of the individuality. It is similar to romanticism. There may be a kind of comparison between transcendentalism versus romanticism. Romanticism in Britain, or you can say in the Europe, romanticism gave focus to particularly nature. You know, it focused nature. Okay, it focused on the feelings of the man. Feelings is everything. Okay, if you take the definition of Wordsworth, how he defined romanticism. Okay, uh, it's a outburst of emotional uh, uh, feelings. Okay, which is recollected in tranquility. Okay, so emotion, you can say imagination, feelings, they are very important. Nature at the same time. But here in transcendentalism, we find that God is more important, that you don't find in romanticism. In romanticism, there is no place for God. Uh, the pioneers of romanticism, if you take Coleridge, Wordsworth, they focused nature. Nature is the emblem of God, they believe, but the concept of God, the concept of religion, the concept of spiritualism is lacking in romanticism. We do not find. Romanticism is found in means in Europe, in contrast to reason, intellectual belief. So before romanticism, there was the age of reason, you know. So reason means a lot of intellectuality. So in contrast to that, in opposition to that, we find romanticism in Europe, in which we find people they focus on the common things, they focus on the feelings of the very common people, the common feelings, and, and that is everything. Okay, and here you find that there is a little difference in this. You will find some kind of similarities, because you find nature is focused in romanticism. Also, you find in transcendentalism they focus on nature, but you find the word transcendentalism, transcend means going beyond. Means transcendentalist, they think that you have to go beyond the physical world. going beyond the physical world is transcend. You can say transcendentalism. So this is in brief what transcendentalism is and how it is not similar to you can say romanticism. Romanticism exemplifies the importance of emotions and freedom over intellectuality or intellectual growth. Okay, they believe that everyone should follow what they are feeling. Feeling is very important. The human feelings is very important. So when you will find in Kubla Khan or in the ancient mariner of who has written the
ST
ancient mariner,
Coleridge. ST Coleridge.
Coleridge. Yes, Coleridge. So you find that after taking opium, whatever comes to his mind out of intoxication, the feelings is being narrated. That feelings is important. How the feelings is actually coming to you, that is not important, but the feelings has to be given a shape, and that is romantic literature. But transcendentalism draws inspiration from beyond or external to the human perspective, even beyond reasoning and the normal traditions. They go beyond everything. So beyond means definitely you can divinity or divinity you can say is the final destination. But here nature is the final destination in romanticism. Anyhow, we are not going to discuss more about this because we have to cover two poets of American literature. So now coming to Song of Myself. Okay, Song of Myself is one of the best poems by Whiteman or Whitman. What Whitman? Okay, so four poems have been prescribed: Song of Myself, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, okay, Passage to India, and another poem that when lilac lilacs last on the Doriad Bloom. So these are the four poems of um, Whitman that have been prescribed for you. So coming to Song of Myself is a very known poem. Okay, if you any of you have graduation in English honors, you must have read this poem. I think I hope because it's so popular that it has been prescribed in all the syllabus, either in graduation level or in post graduation level. This poem is compulsory, you can say. If you read American literature, so and you do not come across this poet or this particular poem, Song of Myself, means your literary study is not complete, we believe. So Song of Myself is that kind of text that you must go through the text. So today what I will say, what I will discuss, I'll just give a overall idea about the poem, but exact the original you can say the original pleasure of reading a transcendentalist or a poem of transcendentalism is only can be retrieved if you go through the text. You can enjoy the text, you can understand why it has been prescribed or is being prescribed in most of the syllabus. So that is why I refer you to read, go through the text of Song of Myself. Okay, you if you need references, you can find references from internet. It's all already there. You can find the references. Any word, difficult words, I don't think there will be difficult words, but you need a poetic perception in order to understand poems particularly, because prose novels dramas, they are different, but poems are different. Those who have poetic mind, those who have poetic bent of mind, they can easily understand the poet and the temperament of the poet. Anyhow, Song of Myself is is a celebration of self. In Song of Myself, we find the poet celebrating the self. Okay, The longest poem in Leaves of Grass. We find this poem, this particular Song of Myself, to be the longest poem. Okay. In 52 parts, we find this poem has 52 parts. Okay. Is a joy uh, full celebration of the human self, and in its most expanded, spontaneous, self-sufficient description, you will find of celebration. There is a celebration. It is a combination of, you can say, combination of biography, sermon, and poetic meditation. Okay, all these three things you will find being combined together in this Song of Myself. Okay. This is a grand poem in an American epic. So this poem is a, you can say, is an American epic. Epic, you must have idea about an epic. Epic is a very long poem. For example, you can take our Mahabharata and the Ramayana, a poem which is very long. Okay, so we send epic.
Sir,
Paradise
but
Lost. Then
epic is considered to be heroic poems, matlab, to glorify something
heroic.
heroic.
He-
But
Yes,
here, though, he's not referring to some heroic event. He's just celebrating himself,
he's
like
celebrating
myself.
himself.
So,
The epic is not always heroic. All the epics are not heroic, but mostly epics are heroic. So if you take
okay.
American poetry, and if you search for an epic, you may not find an epic, because American poetry started in a point of time when epic has become outdated. So do you find anyone writing epic now? We
No,
do not
sir.
find any epics being written now. Mahabharata written in 18 pieces, you will find, and Ramayana also having different divisions, so long poems. So you do not find anybody having
So,
patience to.
epic is not only about heroic events or celebration. It is just a long poem, right? I can
No,
say that.
we, if you talk about the definition of epic, you will find also heroic elements there, but not in all epics. Okay, so
Okay, sir.
epics you can consider here epic suggesting a very long poem having different parts, having many parts, like 52 parts. If you study Paradise Lost, you will find 12 books written for Paradise Lost. Sometimes mm, uh, we say Wordsworth's
Prelude.
prelude is also an epic. We say
Yeah,
we
yeah.
do not find any heroic activity there. We find
He,
his biographical, just he is talking about him and the nature there. Okay,
yes,
so
sir.
that
Got your
is not.
point.
Mm. So that is also considered to be an epic.
So
So that
is
is
it
why.
is it similar to eulogy? It is also about praise when you're praising someone.
No, here he is not praising anyone.
Okay.
Okay,
He's just celebrating, right?
he is
Like
celebrating
he's
the
enjoying
self.
himself. Okay.
He's
Okay.
Thank you,
celebrating
sir.
the human self. He's celebrating his own self, as well as the uh, universalization of self. When you universalize self, it becomes the self of everyone, the human self. Okay, so this is considered to be an epic in American literature. Uh, Beginning in the middle, medias res, we say something which starts in the middle. It starts in the middle of poet's life, and it follows loosely follows a quest pattern. Okay, in the first edition of 1855, Leaves of Grass, this poem has no title, means this Song of Myself, the poem has no title. Okay, in 1856 it was called a poem of What Whitman, an American. A title was given in 1856. It was a poem of What Whitman, an American. In 1860 edition of Leaves of Grass, it was again. retitled as What Whitman. Okay, in 1881 edition of Leaves of Grass, it was titled as Song of Myself. Okay, in 1881 edition of Leaves of Grass, we find this title, Song of Myself, being introduced. Okay, so we find three important themes: the idea of self that I said, the identification of self with other selves, and the poet's relationship with the elements of nature. Okay, so the same way you will also relate to Wordsworth's prelude. So there also we find, and here we find also the same thing, that the poet's relationship with the elements of nature, that is a theme, a kind of theme we find here, and the idea of self and identification of self with other selves. These are the important themes. Houses and rooms you will find here posed represented as civilization. Okay, you will find the symbols of houses and rooms which represent civilization. Perfumes signify individuals. Individuals are symbolized or presented. You can, from perfume you can identify this is the symbol of individual. So having individualism, having individual traits. And the atmosphere in the poem is a symbol of universe. Okay, or you can say the symbol of universal self. The self is conceived of a spiritual entity, a spiritual entity. Okay, the self, you can say the soul, is conceived of a spiritual entity which remains relatively permanent in and through the changing flux of ideas and experiences which constitute um, its conscious life. Okay. So the self is very important. It is connected with the spiritual entity, and it is permanent. The relation is, it remains permanent, we say. And the self comprises ideas, experiences, psychological states, and the spiritual insight. We say the self which has been celebrated, which is the theme, major theme of the poem Song of Myself. We when we say of the self, we means it consists of ideas, experiences, and psychological states, and also the spiritual insight. So this is about the self. The self is both individual and universal. He also says that the self we are talking about, it is both individual and universal. Man has an individual self, whereas the world, or the cosmos, we can say, the universe, has a universal self. So if you take as a whole the entire world, the cosmos, the space, the world has a self also. The human beings have individual self, but the world has a universal self. He wished to merge the individual with the universal. The universal self and the individual self, they are supposed to mingle. They are supposed to be mixed. His idea involves the identification of the poet, okay, with the mankind. The poet's self, how the poet is connected with the mankind. The poet's self, the identification of the poet's self with the mankind, and the mystic union, the mystic universe, the mysterious world, okay, of the poet with the god, you can say. The poet with the god, the poet's self with the mystic world, the mystic union of the god, union with the god. So this is something the self is about. According to him, sexual union is a figurative anticipation, you can say, of spiritual union. Means he did not think that sexual union is something very separate from the union of self with the spiritual spirituality. So spirituality and, you can say, the physical and the spiritual are combined together here. The poet's ecstasy is both physical and spiritual. He develops a sense of loving brotherhood with God and all mankind. So, after all, if you take the self of the cosmos, universe, the individual self, and again combining them and talking about the union of selves, all these things altogether can be referred to the concept of fraternity that we talked at the beginning, that he supports the concepts, all these three concepts, major concepts of democracy: liberty, equality, and fraternity. If you see, you can find the trace of fraternity in all these discussions of self. The style of the poem reflects his individualism. Okay, he is an individual. All the individuals have their uh, traits, individual traits. You can say that is why we say individual. So the concept, the term individual, or you can say the term individuality, is different. Okay, he uses colloquial expressions in the poem. If you go through the style of writing, you find colloquial expressions, which are very frequently used in the poem. That is very important when you talk about uh, romanticism and transcendentalism, because in romanticism also you find very simple words and simple syntax, simple structure of the uh, poems, because complexity was a kind of trend during the age of reason, when difficult words, difficult expressions were used. But when we came to romanticism, poems became very simple. You will find a lot of poems being taught to class 5 students from romantic age by great poets. So that is why this is also something we find similar to romanticism. Here also the poet means what Whitman used colloquial expressions. So this is briefly about Song of Myself. Coming to the next poem, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. Okay, this is another poem. I'll try to finish quickly so that we can jump to Emily Dickinson. Otherwise, time may not allow us to cover Emily Dickinson today. So, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry is also a poem, long poem, a very long poem, not like Song of Myself, but it is also considerably a long poem of 9 sections. Okay, it has 9 sections. It is the final poem of Leaves of Grass. It was originally called Sun uh, Down poem. Okay, Sun Down poem in 1856. The present title, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, was given in 1860 edition of Leaves of Grass. So in 1860 edition, this title was given. The major image is very clear from the title itself. This is the ferry. The major image of the poem is the ferry, which is a symbol of, or you can say, which symbolizes continuous movement. Ferry goes from one side to another side of the river or the lake, taking the passengers. You may understand what is the role of a ferry. So ferry takes the people, from passengers, from one from land and through water to another part of the land. Okay, in order to cross a river, in order to cross a lake, you may need a ferry. So ferry is a symbol of continuous movement. It moves continuously from to and fro. It moves. It is a universal motion in space and time. Okay, this is a symbol of motion in space and time. So you will also find there is motion, there is movement in the space and time, playing between mortality and immortality. Mortality, you say the land is, you can say mortality, and immortality. We say the physical world, the earth is mortality, and the heaven is immortality. So when we talk about space and time, we think about this concept of connection, that mortality, from mortality to immortality, from immortality to mortality, this to and fro the ferry moves. The land and the water through which the ferry moves, the land and the water through which it moves to another part of the land, so they are also symbolic. Okay. The symbol, the land symbolizes the physical world, and water symbolizes the spiritual world. Okay, the land is physical and water is spiritual. So there is a connection of physical and spiritual world. The circular flow of the you can say the circular flow from the physical to the spiritual connotes the dual nature of the universe. The dual nature means where there is spiritualism, there may be materialism. So there is this is the dualism or duality, we can say, we find in the universe. What is dualism? Dualism is related to the mind. It is the mind matters. Okay. Yes or no, you know that there is always, if there is yes, there is no. This is dualism. If there is darkness, there is light. Okay. So if there is fire, there is water. If there is means, I say this, these are the examples of dualism. You can understand that we find both the positive and negative things in this universe. This is dualism. There is something good, something evil, something good, something bad. So good and evil, day and night, darkness and light. So you will find all the things have their opposite things in this world, exist in this world. So that is dualism nature of the world. So in Whitman's view, both mind and spirit are realities, and matter in only means which enable man to realize the truth. So this is how mind and matters. He talked about mind and matters. Mind and spirit are realities, and matter is only the means, the way by which man is able to realize the truth. So the truth, what is truth? What is good? What is virtue? What should we accept? What should we reject? So that is something which matter will help you to realize. Matter means materialism, you know. So the materialism, when we say materialism, you can understand from matter it becomes materialism. And the concept of materialism, this concept also you can relate what Vivekananda said. Very beautiful concept. Vivekananda said that we cannot force somebody to give up non-veg. So when he talks about, if somebody wants to become a sant, a sadhu, is he supposed to give up non-veg? Is he supposed to give up physical pleasure? Vivekananda said no. He is he is to be free. He has to be made free to enjoy all these things. Only after realizing, after using, after enjoying, after means you eat non-veg as much as you want. So after eating the most, when you realize there is nothing very valuable in this, you will leave it automatically. Okay. So you are not forced from the very beginning, from a childhood, do not eat this. You have a secret inclination towards chicken, but your parents deny that you cannot take it. This is the concept of spiritualism we believe in India. Our spiritualism says that do not eat non-veg. That is a part of your spiritualism. But what is actual spiritualism. So here also you can connect the words of Vivekananda said, you let them free, go and enjoy materialism as much as they want. Once they realize, they will return to spiritualism by themselves, and only then they can attain the actual spiritualism. But um, if you give up physical pleasure, you do not have a wife, but you look at other girls, so can you say you are a sadhu? No, not at all. So one must be free to enjoy physical pleasure. How long he can enjoy? So whenever he find no meaning in enjoying such kind of pleasure, and he cannot at all find any pleasure out of it, he will give up automatically. You do not have to compel anybody. This is very important in Hindu culture. So the same thing also here said Whitman. He said that matter is something which can change your mind. Matter is something by which you can realize that what is actually truth. The truth can be realized only through matters. If you are told that this is true, that is false, you cannot accept it. So that is why, according to Walt Whitman, or men in what Whitman's world, while overcoming the duality of the universe, desires fusion with the spirit. This is the attempt to transcend the boundaries of space and time by the people, by the mankind. The human beings, they try to transcend, they try to go beyond the boundaries of the space and time. Space and time, space when you talk about the place, the time. So when you forget about all these things, you do not have any concern regarding this, and you do something, you act something, you try to perform your activities beyond the influence of time and space, so you transcend. So that is the ultimate aim of spiritualism. You can attain spiritualism. This is very important. The fairy here is a very beautiful symbol. The coming together and riding the ferry together is a symbol of spiritual unity. Okay, so the fairy in the inner mind, if you try to understand, the fairy takes you beyond the space and time, the limit of space and time. The fairy acts like this. The man who is very much indulged in materialism is taken away by the fairy to something spiritual. And those who are found in the fairy, they are going to the same direction. Suppose when you are going through a boat, all the people in the boat, they are supposed to reach the same kind of destination. That is why he said the people, those who come, particularly those who ride the ferry, they belong to the, and they have the same kind of spiritual unity, or they have same spiritual intentions. Most often the elements of nature is addressed also in this poem. You can see this poem also. This is a brief idea about the fairy. So if you go through the poem, it's a long poem, but definitely if you try to go through the poem, you can understand the poem is very important and interesting. It's about the internal psychology, it is about the spiritual ideology of the human being to transcend. So, coming to Emily Dickinson, it's already time, but we can have a brief introduction to Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is a different poet. So we learnt about Whitman. He is a different kind of poem who tried his best to establish democracy, the real democracy in America, and talked about liberty, equality, fraternity. We discussed. Here, Emily Dickinson is a different kind of poet. She was born in 1830 and died in 1886. She was an American poet, little known during her lifespan. When she was alive, she was least known by the American. Now she is a celebrated poet in American literature, but during her lifetime, She was not known. Only 10 poems out of 800 poems. She has written 800, 1800 poems, but only 10 got published during her lifetime. So you can understand, by publishing only 10 poems, how can one be a good poet or well known poet to the Americans? She was born in Massachusetts in a prominent family. She lived much of her life in isolation. She prefers isolation and she lives in isolation most of the time. And you'll find a reflection of that concept of isolation, of dissolution in the poetry, in the thematic part of the poems usually written by her. She never married. She did not marry throughout her life. But again, another thing which adds, her friendship mostly depended on correspondence. She even does not have a good number of friends. She has a very less number of friends, you can say, very selected number of friends. And also that kind of friendship means that friendship was also dependent on correspondence, means going and meeting together, sitting together, dining together, moving or wandering together. We believe that it strengthens our friendship. But here we find that she never believes in that. She never goes out of the house. She prefers isolation. She prefers to be alone all the time. And the same themes you will find in her poem. Her poems use slant rhymes. Slant rhyme. Slant rhyme is a concept you can understand. Slant rhyme means a rhyming pattern. You must understand when two words they have the same sound towards the end. Okay, we say uh, uh, kid, bead. Suppose we say dog, fog. If we say, so they are rhyming words. If these words came in the end of two lines, we can say these two lines are rhyming. So here we find that Dickinson used slant rhyme. Slant rhymes is a pattern in which you find there are the words particularly. Uh, Slant rhyme is also called half rhyme. Okay, similar words are at the end of the sentence, but not the identical sounds. Sounds are not there. Identical, similar sounds we do not find at the end, but the words at the end of the sentence we find they are similar. For example, you can take the example home, non. Home, mo is the last sound. Non, no is the last sound. Non and home, they sounds to some extent similar. Okay, but rhyming pattern is based on the ending sound of the word, but here the ending sound is not similar. So this is called slant rhyme or half rhyme, we say. Okay. Another example you can say, mm, suppose prosperous and cups. Here also you find prosperous, rus, last sound, rus, and cups. The sa sound matches in both the words, but you cannot say these two words are rhyming. Cups and prosperous, they do not rhyme. So this is called half rhyme, okay, or slant rhyme. So most of her poems, uh, we find this slant rhyme in Dickinson. Uh, this is also an important part. As well as this, she is also she was also writing about writing in unconventional capitalization and punctuation. Unconventional means conventional, which is not conventional, is unconventional. So usually when you capitalize, there is a convention, there is a rule by which you capitalize. Suppose you are using a proper noun, we capitalize the letter, the first letter of the word, even if it is in the middle of the sentence. But C means Emily Dickinson capitalizes any letter, uh, any word, the first letter of any word in between the sentences. That is also something. And the punctuation has some also means she denied defy the rules of grammar in punctuation. Most of the poems written in short lines. Lines are very short. Typically, a lack of the most of the poems have no title. In most of our poems, you do not find a title. Poem lines are very short, usually write in slant rhymes, and there is unconventional use of capitalization and punctuation in her poems. And most frequent themes are death and immortality. Most frequent themes are death and immortality. Along with that, we find also other themes like aesthetics, aesthetics, you can say, and society, nature, and spirituality. Okay, these are the important themes that we find in the poems of uh, Emily Dickinson. So this is about a brief introduction of Emily Dickinson, and all the poems by Dickinson is very short. Okay, so you can uh, go through the poems easily because they are very short, written in free verse, and there is no meter or these kind of things. So you can understand. Also, the vocabulary is very simple. If you have time, if you have the text, you can go through the text. Have it will give you better understanding of the text or the poet. Okay. So it is 4 and 7. The class for MEG-8 is about to start. So if time allows us, then we may discuss some of the poems by Emily Dickinson also. But today, it's very difficult to complete two great poets of America in 1 hour. Okay, so I tried my best to go fast, but anyhow, the
Thank
time.
you, sir.
Okay, so
So when will be
let's
the next class?
the next class is on the day after tomorrow. Okay,
Okay, sir.
I think you have got the schedule or not.
So actually, I am not from the Bhubaneswar RC. I am from Delhi RC. So I don't have the schedule. I just got a link from a friend. So I just joined up.
Okay, okay. If you forget the schedule, then you can easily join. Everything is given the
Yes, so
links
that's why I was just asking about the timings and the date because I'm not aware about all those
every
things.
alternative day. Okay, so every
Okay, sir.
alternative day.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you.
So, do we have this entire poem in a syllabus?
Entire poem means
Um, Song of Myself. It's a long poem.
yes, the entire poem is there in the syllabus. That is why only four poems have been prescribed. But if you take a look at Dickinson, you have 7 or 8 poems prescribed in your syllabus. Okay, only four from
No,
uh,
only 7 parts are there in our syllabus. The for songs of myself, only 7 stanzas are in our course. It is not the full entire.
okay. It might be, but I have not seen the text. Whatever text
Okay.
has been
No,
prescribed, because
the like
um,
it's from MEG Gankosh. You can have a look. We have only till seventh stanza.
no, in Gyankos, whatever materials you get, I don't find the 7 stanzas in the material. I have also gone through the material,
No,
but I
actually, sir, I had checked with the other faculties of mine. They said we have only till 7 stanzas. We do not have the entire poem because it's a very long one. No?
very
Like
long poem. Yes, I know that, but it must be very much clear in the syllabus. Okay, I have not seen the syllabus, whatever actually mentioned there, the entire poem or only some part of the poem. Okay, I have a look at the syllabus,
the
whatever.
faculties
But
of
in
Delhi RC
e-Gyankos,
told me that we have only till 7 stanzas.
okay, then it will be good to go through the poem. You can easily go through the poem. The
Yes, sir.
time. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.